Welcome to Hellish. I'm Daniel Whelan and I am Hell's receptionist. It is my job to greet the damned souls as they arrive in the underworld, and while they wait to hear what hellish task they will be performing for all eternity, I extract from them their infernal playlists. The 5 songs that will soundtrack their torture from now until the end of recorded time. Helping, as always, with this task is Satan's T-Boy, the man who can't be bothered to think of something new to write here. It's the last episode of Season 1. You can just wing it when we do the recording, Dan. Mr. Alex Gale. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Daniel.
Hey, so end of Season 1, last full episode.
Well, busy time down here, you know. Positive and negative feelings about it being the last of the season, but we've been up to something super special. Shoulder to the grindstone, nose to the wheel, all that kind of stuff.
We have. So today is, if you're listening to this as it goes out, today is Saturday the 30th of November. This is the last full episode of Hellish until probably February. But if you come back to your feed tomorrow, there is a surprise.
Yes, indeed.
So come back tomorrow and we'll have a surprise. But for now, Alex, it seems you have brought us 2 damned souls to celebrate the milestone of reaching the end of the season. So who is this I see before me?
Well, this is Andrea Parker and Paul Adams from the Welsh indie pop rock band Melys. They've produced 4 studio albums to date, starting with Rumours and Curses in 1998. The DJ, John Peel, was a big fan, and the band recorded 9 sessions for him, more than any other Welsh band, and their 2001 single, Chinese Whispers, came top in Peel's Festive 50 that year. They've just released their new single, Santa Cruz, which is to be followed in the spring of 2025, next year as we speak, by their first album of new music for 20 years.
Okay, so Andrea Parker and Paul Adams, Melys, welcome to Hell.
Thank you very much, I think.
Hello.
It's very nice to have you here. We always like some fresh blood down here in Hell. So you've had quite a career so far, and judging by the new single, it's only going to go from strength to strength. You must be asking yourselves, what have you done to deserve this? Why have you ended up in Hell? So what have you done to deserve this?
Took a huge gap, I think.
Okay.
Too long away.
I see. It's music industry hell rather than normal hell for you. So it has been a while. That 20 years has it's flown by. But can I ask what you've been doing? Why there has been such a gap in your releases?
I don't know really. We never really planned it. It just kind of happened, and that's probably why we are in hell, like Andrew says. It's just we never intended. We never actually broke up or anything like that. We just didn't do anything. Just did a couple of tours with a wedding present, and that was it really. But yeah.
I think we've also been recording for probably the last, I think it's been the last 6 or 8 years, if I'm honest with you, on and off.
Yeah, makes Stone Rose's Second Coming look like a blip compared to the
Well, I mean, unlike Second Coming, we've heard a little bit of the fruits of the new album in the single Santa Cruz, and unlike Second Coming, it's good. I liked you before, but I think this is another level. Santa Cruz, is this indicative of what the new album is going to sound like?
Yeah, it's more joyous. We've always been very dark and miserable.
Right.
But I think there's a lot more positivity in the actual sound of the songs. Maybe not in the lyrics, but in the sound of the songs there definitely is. Yeah.
Okay, well, if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to play a little bit of Santa Cruz now, just so the audience can hear it. So everyone, this was out yesterday as we go out, so it's fresh, hot off the press. So this is a little bit of Santa Cruz by Melys. Here we go. Okay, so that's Melys' new single, Santa Cruz, sounding great, guys. So, you guys are a married couple, aren't you? You are together.
Yep.
And And when I think of doing anything with my wife together, there's normally quite a large amount of arguing, and we struggle to get around Tesco. How is it being in a band with your partner? How does that work?
See, we're used to being in hell.
Right.
I am, you mean? No, do you know, I don't find it that difficult, really, to be honest with you. I don't. It's
it's lovely.
We've always worked together. We've always worked together since we got together. So it seems quite natural, really, that we'd be in a band together. Obviously, we do different things in a day. We don't literally do everything together. But yeah, it just seems to work reasonably well. I mean, don't get me wrong, we might have a barn here and there, but not very often, if that makes sense. I think we've both got similar perspectives on things.
Yeah, you're always right.
I'm always right. That's
it. Okay. Yeah, maybe I should learn that one.
Do you know what, Dan? I found that's the same in my marriage.
What, Linda is always right?
She's always right.
Okay. I think that might be where I'm going wrong in that case.
You get around Tesco's much quicker if Sylvia's just always right.
Or if she just went on her own, that would probably be the quickest way of doing it. But there you go. But seriously though, because your kind of business, if you like, in being in a band is kind of expression, right? That's kind of what you're doing. You're creating new art. Is there ever a point where you're going like, well, I want to write about this, but I worry about what my partner will think if they discover that, I secretly hate having to take the bins out, or, if they find out that actually I really, really like Star Trek and want to write songs about it or something. Do you ever feel timid showing the other person what you want to write about or what you want to create?
That doesn't really happen. To be honest with you. I think there's a consensus where maybe they'd feel uncomfortable singing about that if I've written something, or if Andrea has, that I'd be reticent to script it. But it hasn't never really come up. We're usually on par with what we want. And to be fair, it's just been the Melys way, really. We set Melys when basically we it sounds really fucking sad, but we didn't have any friends at the time, and we just sat in a room and just wrote music together, and that's how we started. Literally was, Yeah, we were like pariahs. so it was kind of made sense to write about it and record what we were doing, and that's kind of stuck with us all the way through, and that's really why it's so tight, I think, between us.
Yeah.
Does it have any impact on the band dynamic, having a couple there for the other members of the band? I don't know whether you guys have played separate from each other before you formed Melys, and was it different then?
Yeah, Paul was in a band before.
Yeah, he was in a band previously, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's been... Well, do you know what? You'd have to ask them, if I'm honest with you. Maybe it is a bit weird to be around a couple, but we don't tend to, overplay the fact that we are a couple when we're in the band either. Do you know what I mean? But it's not like we disappear off and let them get on with it. We're quite inclusive in terms of, we just sit around and we spend time with the band, if that makes sense, when we're with the band.
But it is something we are conscious about as well. Yeah. That we don't want to... Yeah, but I guess we are a pain in the ass for them sometimes, but it's difficult to say anything, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are you guys in charge? Like, if it came down to it, would you be the casting vote, you two?
I think so.
Okay.
Mainly because I think the lads that are with us now, they've not been with us all the way through. Does that make sense? We are the longest remaining part of the band, I suppose.
Right.
And Gary, the drummer.
And Gaz. We've had Diane come in at some points when Gaz obviously dropped out for a while and then come back. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. And Gary, definitely. But then it's not even like that. All the decisions we make, we check with everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'd rather we don't make decisions. It's no one's in charge as such. We try and make it as open and have a conversation, because everyone's allowed a life, if that makes sense. And they don't want to do stuff, even if they've got offers of gigs and we can't do it. Then we always throw it out to the band and say, well, do you want to do this or not? And it's always quite a democratic thing for us.
Well, by the way, lads, we're on a podcast tonight. Sorry didn't say.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, you're not invited. But we are going to hell, so swings and roundabouts.
I suppose that's the one thing that they don't get. They don't get offered to do as much stuff as perhaps myself and Paul get offered, I suppose. And I do talk to Paul about this a lot. It's always the front person that everyone wants to talk to in a band.
Yes.
And it's just difficult sometimes because it's always going to be me plus Paul who will get asked to do all these things. I suppose, we just have to have conversations and try and encourage them to join in when they can join in, if that makes sense.
Do they ever complain? Because Alex and I used to be the rhythm section of a band, and this is a very unsuccessful and unknown band. But one time, the guitarist put out a flyer that me and Alex didn't have faces in, and that was very annoying. So do they ever complain, the other guys, or are they just cool to let you take the brunt of doing this kind of silly nonsense that we have you doing tonight?
No, they've not complained to us, have they? So
No.
I don't think it's something that, again, we have a strange dynamic in the band is that we don't live near each other.
Right.
Gary lives up in Scotland. Aaron lives over in Manchester. Yuan's the closest. He lives over by Carnarvon. So to be honest, it'd be difficult for them to link up with us face to face anyway to do stuff. So we have to really have, our diaries open to coordinate things like band practice or doing gigs, if that makes sense. And that's why it has to be quite an open conversation together, and we make a decision together as a band, if that makes sense, because of all the commitments they've got. So,
yeah, that's lovely. It sounds like a very mature and nice way to be. You hear so many times about bands' egos clashing and people arguing over the silliest things. So it sounds like a very sensible way to do it.
I think that's come over time though as well. I think with this stage, doing it all over again and doing stuff again that we hadn't done for 20 odd years, you approach it with a completely different set of priorities. Really, you just we're going to do this, but we're all going to have a good time. We're all going to enjoy it. We're not going to, we're not chasing anything. Let's just see where it goes. And we're a lot more relaxed about it as a band now.
Yeah, definitely.
So in that case, if I could take you back to those kind of earlier days before the long hiatus, you have this single Chinese Whispers that comes top in Peel's Festive 50 that year. I should probably explain what Festive 50 is. So it was the listeners to John Peel's show would submit tracks for inclusion, and then they would vote for what their favourite track was. So that meant that John Peel's audience, although John Peel himself was a big fan, his audience voted for Chinese Whispers to be the top song of 2001, which is obviously a big honour, especially for indie musicians. But then it's not long after that we don't hear from you for a long time. So I'm wondering, at that point, where you've got this kind of Chinese Whispers is the top of the Festive 50. Is there an argument about like where we're going to go? Like this is our moment, we should capitalize on it. Like what happened exactly there?
We refused to repress.
Oh,
yeah.
Why? That seems like an open goal.
Well, we had a young family.
Okay.
We were friends at the time. Well, we still are with Keris from Catatonia. We saw what could happen at that time with what went on with Keris, and I think we did. Our middle child Chloe, she was only just very, very small at the time, and we just made a conscious decision really that. Okay, it's John Peel's Festive 50. One of the things we wanted to do on our bucket list when we started the band was to have a Peel session. To win the Festive 50, that should be it. That should be it. Whoever bought that single, that should be it for them. So we were. There was two things really why we refused to repress. I mean, the distributor really wanted to repress it, and in another way that would have been it for us, but. No, we made a conscious decision not to do it.
I think the struggling with the idea of being famous when you've got young children, it was difficult to kind of see if we repressed and we really went for it, because at that point we had offers to do things like we've been considered for things like Jules Holland and all those kind of things that would have elevated us as a band, and just, I don't know, it was just like something stopping us really wanting to. It just wasn't the fame that we were in it for,
We were an
bizarrely.
indie band, weren't we?
Yeah,
that was
we
it.
didn't want to be famous.
Do you have any regrets about that?
No, if I'm honest,
Not
I don't.
really. No, I mean, sometimes you think, oh, I wonder what would have happened, but
Yeah.
we don't sit there and go, fuck, we were really stupid. Yeah, we had other things that we said no to that we were probably more stupid for. But at the end of the day, we've achieved everything we ever wanted as a band. Bar, well, two things for me, one thing from Andrea, and there's only one thing that we haven't done, and that's play Glastonbury, and the other one was go to Japan. We did America, we did Europe, and everything like that. We achieved it. To be honest with you, we were quite satisfied with the way it was going anyway.
Yeah.
You do surprise me because you seem to me to be a band that would very obviously have done both of those things. Like, that does surprise me. And when you were talking about not wanting to be famous, I guess when you started the band, the idea of indie musicians being famous would have been fairly laughable, I would think. But then very quickly after you start the band, it becomes mainstream, right? All of a sudden, Jarvis Cocker is the most famous person in the world. In the UK anyway. When 5 years, he'd spent 15 years not, resolutely not being the most famous person in the UK.
Yeah.
When that time started to happen, was there any part of you that kind of fancied that kind of Britpop getting into that kind of like big scene and all that kind of success, or were you immediately shying away from it?
My issue was the fact that Oasis ruined indie music. They totally ruined the indie scene because suddenly everything that's called itself indie suddenly became mainstream.
Yeah.
And yes,
Andy supports City, the Tossers.
There is that as well. But I think that, we definitely had an indie perspective at that point in our lives. We were in an indie band and it wasn't meant to be that we got famous and suddenly... And we saw the effects of fame of people around us that did get famous. And it wasn't just Keris, it was others around us. It's difficult to be famous and have a normal life, and be able to bring up children and go to the shops and do those normal things. And that's not what we set out to do. When we set the band up, it wasn't about that, if that makes sense. So when that was like on a plate for us, that's when we decided that it probably wasn't for us. And that we didn't. We still did things after, like I said, the Festive 50. We played South by Southwest. We went over to Austin, Texas, and we still had a ball. But I think we just it's that whole idea of fame and being famous was something that we kind of shied away from at that point in our lives.
But I think that's so admirable, like to have the maturity to kind of go, we're not ready for this and we don't really want it. I think that's just incredible to me because I think, like, especially when you're young, it's very easy to just go for ambition and for to take everything that's offered to you. So I think that's incredible. Do you think that maybe with this new album coming out that Glastonbury might be on the cards at some point?
It would be that's the dream for me. That is the ultimate. I'd love to play at Glastonbury. It really would, honestly.
See, Andrea's never been to Glastonbury, and that's a real bugbear because everyone else in the family, apart from the youngest son, has. Me too. So we do rub it in her face a little bit.
We've got to make it happen. In fact, you know what, Andrea? We've got to make it happen that you just go and do a solo gig at Glastonbury, then you can get your own back for a bit.
Totally.
Okay, well, in a moment we're going to start asking you for your Infernal playlist. But before we do that, we have a few questions from Tracy in HR, who wants to make sure you are given suitably unpleasant tasks while you're in hell. So we would like to know what the worst job each of you has ever done is.
Oh, my God.
Crikey. I know mine.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Mine. I had to work in a petrol station when we were still in the band, actually, in those indie days.
Yeah.
And the petrol station itself wasn't bad, but it was just I had to work nights. It was really boring. It was quite the job, let me tell you, to manage to kind of,
I bet you see all sorts, especially late at night.
Totally. The police will pop in every now and again and say, "Oh, they've had a gang reported at the road that they've stolen loads of things from the shop up the road. I advise you don't let them in." And I'd be on my own.
Jesus.
And I'd be like, "Right, okay, well, thanks for telling me that, but what am I meant to do?"
Yeah. Can you just stay here for a bit?
Just be terrified for the rest of the night.
I was. So that was definitely one of those moments where I think, wow, I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Was this in North Wales?
It was, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Things can be a bit dodgy sometimes.
Totally. You wouldn't believe. I don't think anyone believes how bad it is until you actually get those kind of jobs.
Yeah,
and then all that level kind of gets exposed to you then.
Yeah, like the underside that you don't know. Yeah. When I was a wedding DJ for a while, as regular listeners are bored about me spaffing on about, but it's the same thing, is that you kind of see people at you see the kind of dark side of things because you're generally the only one there not drinking.
Yeah.
You kind of see the craziness. How about you, Paul? What's the worst job you've ever done?
I've done a few, to be honest with you, but I think the one that really sticks in my mind now, you just sprung this on me, is moss picking.
Moss picking?
Moss.
As in MOSS, yeah.
Oh.
And Christmas tree thing. It was all wrapped up in one. You used to go up into the forests at crack of dawn and pick this soaking wet fucking moss and dump it in the bin bag, squashing it down so all the water came out. So you'd take an hour just to fill a bag. It was crap, It was just some guy said to me, "Oh yeah, we'll do this. This will be good fun." I'm like, "What?" So, worst thing ever, mate. Honestly.
It does sound horrible, but why do you do this? Why
do you not get this, Dan? It's incredibly festive moss.
Yes, it is.
We've got some downstairs now. My wife was out last weekend moss picking.
Honestly, but funnily enough, I don't recall actually telling Andrea this, but
no,
because she loves fucking moss, right?
I love moss.
After this bloody what was the artist?
Oliver Eliasson. Have you seen Oliver Eliasson's Wall of Moss?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Amazing. So I love moss.
So she frames it all around the house now. We've got moss in frames all around the bloody house.
You've got to be careful, though. We had I went downstairs to the dining room yesterday and I found a wasp crawling across the floor, and it had evidently been asleep nice and warm in the moss. And then it was brought into the house for the Christmas season, and it thought it was spring, so it woke up. And then I threw it outside into the freezing cold again.
Wow, well, that is quite the job.
Yeah, shit job that, mate, honestly.
So there is, while we're on the subject of work, there is something I wanted to ask you about, because I was listening to you be interviewed by Hugh Stevens on BBC Radio Wales, and he mentioned that you run a cafe in Llanfyfachan. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've since about year 2000 we've had because originally I'm a trained chef, so I went to it with Marco Pierre White when there was.
Wow.
Yeah, and lived with him for a little while and all that, and so then when later on I thought, do you know what? With my brother and Andrea and my brother's wife, we'd open a bistro in Conway. So we opened a bistro, kind of chilled out, really really nice warm vibe, but doing all bistro food, but with kind of Michelin background, if you like. So it's kind of cool. It went really, really well. We bought another bistro in Betsacoed, and Hugh came to visit us a couple of times in these places, and that's why he was asking about the cafe, because we dipped out of it for a while. And I thought, do you know what? There's this little beach cafe I've seen, and it's up for sale, Andrea. What do you reckon? Can chill out, do a couple of meals a day. Oh my God, honestly, we've never worked so bloody hard. It's so busy.
It's horrendous. It's just so busy, but it's
that's really why it's taken us so long to record this bloody album, really.
Yeah.
Because of the beach cat. You see, the alarm bell that rang for me about busyness there when you said chilled out was the word beach.
Yeah.
Because I work in tourism on the North Wales coast, and I know how nuts that can be.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's crazy. But do your fans know that you have this cafe, and do they turn up in the cafe and
they're starting to now.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah, if it's okay if the local people. Sometimes we do get the odd one that drops in and goes, "Hi." It's like, okay, which is kind of nice because it is a vibe. You know, we're
Yeah.
we're not too fussed. We're not formal,
No.
and so I think maybe we'll bung a couple of T-shirts at the back so we can sell them.
That's a good idea. That is a very good
It
idea.
is, yeah.
Have you ever had anyone like ask you to sign their quiche or anything like that? Have they anything
Sheesh,
crazy?
not as yet.
No.
No.
Okay, I've probably made sure that that's going to happen now.
Yeah,
haven't
probably.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I? Okay, without further ado, let's get onto your Infernal playlist. So, how easy was this for you to figure out? Like when you were deciding what songs you were going to pick, were there any arguments? How have you worked it out?
We had consensus on some,
Okay.
but others, I just think we've just got different perspectives, I suppose. So, you obviously had more than one answer for some of these because,
Yeah.
we just have different. Well, not that I don't agree with some of Paul's choices, but I equally have things that I dislike intensely.
Yeah.
So, I wanted fair representation, basically.
Okay.
So yeah, so did Paul. So yeah, that's why I've got a couple of answers in some of these. But yeah, it was some things we totally agreed on.
Okay.
Which will become evident, I think, as we go through.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's get into it then. So we're going to start with a song you used to like or that you own that you are now embarrassed by.
We were at this conversation. This was the one we were most stuck on because, to be fair, we're not really embarrassed by a lot of stuff that we have in the past. I mean, I even flicked through the record collection just to see if there was no really embarrassing. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some really shit records in there, but I don't think that it's embarrassment as much as like, this is what defines us really. This is what we listen to. Yeah. If I was looking back now, I would say, yeah, this choice is probably the worst of a bad lot, really.
Okay. So what have you chosen then?
This is, I don't even know why it's in my record collection, but I do know I bought it. I'm ashamed to say, but it's Then Jericho, and I think it's The Motive.
Okay.
And I tried to refresh my head about why I bought it. So I actually looked at the video, and it's oh fucking hell, it's awful.
We played this morning. It's diabolical. It really is the worst of the 80s. Or one of the worst of the 80s.
Yeah, that's the problem. I've gone through life saying to Andrea, do you know what? The 80s, there was some really good shit. And then...
and then there was Then Jericho.
Yeah, and then there was this. I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? But, that's kind of where we are, really.
Okay. All right, well, let's let the listeners have a little listen to The Motive by Then Jericho. Here we go. Okay, Alex, can you give us some facts about The Motive by Then Jericho?
I can. The Motive, which we've said about a dozen times in the past minute. The Motive by Then Jericho was a single from the band's first album, 1987's cleverly titled First. It was the band's first hit, breaking into the UK top 20 and peaking at number 18 in July 1987. The Motive's accompanying music video was directed by film and commercial director Andy Morahan, who would go on to direct the film sequels Highlander 3 and Gold 3, which is tantalisingly close to two of our former Hellish alumni acting guests, Stephen White, who appeared in the motion picture Highlander 5, and Santiago Cabrera, who appeared in Gold 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh. It's all connected, isn't it?
Isn't it?
It's the circle of life. So yeah, as you said, this is pretty terrible, this record.
Yeah. In my defense, right, I was always looking for like new music and stuff, so yeah, I can understand why I went out and bought it, but I probably didn't listen to it very much, to be honest with you.
No.
I was always looking for the new stuff, you know.
Earlier today, I put this on to kind of familiarise myself with it, and I have found that how many times I've listened to it, it always sounds like I've never heard it before. It's very forgettable.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But I came in, and my dogs started to really aggressively bark, and I was like, it was like one of those things like, okay, all right, just stop. Like, hang on, I'll let you out or whatever. But before I did that, I transferred this song from my phone to the speaker in the kitchen, and it filled the room with this song, and the dogs shut up and they left the room. Not even the dogs liked this.
That's a sign.
That's quite useful, though.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to use it. I'm going to ironically, I will hear this a lot more now that I know the dogs hate it and they think it's some kind of punishment. And as soon as I stopped playing it, they started like getting their balls out and squeaking and being annoying again. So they definitely think
really?
It's this.
You let that go on in your own house?
Yeah,
they're toys. You mean?
Oh, right. Sorry.
Oh yeah, yeah. I meant their toys. So yeah, I think I would still rather listen to the motive than the incessant squeaking of dog balls, but that might be taking it a bit too far. Okay, all right. So we've kicked off. That's track 1 on your Infernal playlist. So let's go on to track 2 now, which is a song that is universally adored that you cannot stand.
Yeah, that's mine.
Okay, so what's this?
This is Radio Gaga by Queen.
Our old friends Queen. Let's have a quick listen. Okay, so Alex, can we have some song facts about Radio Gaga, please?
You can indeed. This was the first single from Queen's album The Works, and it was released in January of 1984. It was written by the band's drummer, which is always a red flag, Roger Taylor. The song got to number 2 in the UK singles chart. It was kept off the top spot by Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Relax, but it did get to number 1 all around the world, topping the charts in Belgium, Denmark, Finland, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Sweden.
Okay, so Andrea, what is it about Radio Gaga that you cannot stand?
It's just utterly dreadful. It's that whole stadium rock feel about it. It's everyone joining in with the clapping. And it's that part of the song, that chorus, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Do you know what? Yeah, fair play. That's shit, isn't it?
Did I say more?
No.
It's dreadful.
The lyrics are pretty terrible as well. It's just a guy banging on about listening to the radio.
Yeah, indeed. It's a song about nothing. So basically, the moral of the story is, should you ever let a drummer write a song?
I don't think so, but I'm going to go into bat for the opening of this song. It's quite I think the synths and the drum machine aren't that bad for like the first 4 or 8 bars of this.
It sounds like preset to me. It sounds like this is what the synth came with.
And I think the synths, they're Jupiter 8s. He was using Jupiter 8, and I love Jupiter 8. So
let's not go on about synth presets, because there's some brilliant synth presets out there. Look at the Gorillaz track. I mean, there's some brilliant that they can do. They didn't have to resort to that, did they?
No, they didn't. They did not.
Are you guys fans of Queen in general? Any of their other songs?
When I was young, that Queen was around the house, and I appreciated the form of like Bohemian Rhapsody and a lot of A Day at the Races kind of album. But oh God, the more they went on, the more you just hated them, really, isn't it? I mean, we are the champions. We will. Oh God, come on!
And they were played to death, weren't they? Literally, you couldn't go anywhere without hearing Queen.
Andrea, however, whatever you say about that, I still stand by Wonderwall by Oasis is far more shite.
So that was that your choice for this?
That was my
this one?
choice. Didn't make the list. I can't believe that didn't make the list. Right? And I'm not gonna gonna have like sour grapes over this, right? But I think we were up there with neck and neck for a while with that.
Yeah, I can't disagree really. That's equally an awful song, and like I said, it ruined music.
But Daniel, you may know this, but what was on my list before Wonderwall was the wedding medley that everyone plays. Come on, everybody, and all that.
Oh no!
What's it called?
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Jive Bunny.
Jive Bunny.
Oh, that
Jive
one.
Bunny.
Oh, okay. Right.
Is it Jive Bunny Master Mix?
That's
it.
the Master
That's
Mix.
the one.
Yes.
Oh, smash up the.
Well, I can top that. I think Agadoo is up there as well, isn't it?
Here we go. They're all coming out now.
I mean, I've
It's
got
like
to
the
say,
worst of the 80s.
I would say that Agadoo, though, is not universally adored. but I would say that Radio Gaga is very close to Agadoo lyrically.
Yes, that's why I've chosen it. It's exactly that reason.
And to be fair, it's the same thing you were talking about, Andrea, with it's the everyone joining in bit. And that's normally what makes a thing that is universally adored hated by somebody, right? It's the other hell being other people.
Indeed.
And my God, anything where everyone has to join in. Oh, that's so.
And I think that defined the 80s. The whole Agadoo, the whole all those songs where people like the Macarena. I can't bear it. They feel they have to join in or dance or do something, and no, it's a no for me. Oh, the Birdie song.
You know what? When we started this podcast, we thought that we were going to be hearing about all these songs all the time, but you're the first people to bring them up. It's nice to finish our first season with a little bit of the Birdie song, Jive Bunny, and all this nonsense. I mean,
that'd be terrible, isn't it?
There might be something to be said though for in the 80s, where you've got the 80s kind of is everybody joining in, right? It's kind of where everything is mainstream. And that is what allows a vibrant independent scene to start to happen, because there's people who feel like this, who don't want to join in with Radio Gaga, and then they go and start their cool little bands. So it could well be that Radio Gaga is just a pill that you have to swallow for Melys to exist.
No, I don't think so. I think more like the Birdie song, that pushback against crap like that. I'm not sure about Queen. I think they were already in their own little world, weren't they? They were already huge, weren't they?
Okay, well, that's it for the final part 1 of 2024. Shortly, we'll be cranking up the ratchets for part 2, but first we have advertising to share with you. If you'd prefer to hear Andrea and Paul from Melys tell us about the artists they will meet in hell instead, then you can subscribe at patreon.com/hellishpod. You'll also get longer, ad-free versions of the other 29 episodes we've made so far, and you'll get new episodes before anyone else. Either way, here's a brief musical sting. Hello everyone. Sorry to interrupt the episode. Well, I'm not sorry really. I just wanted to let you know about a few ways you can keep us on the road to hell. The first is nice and cheap. Like, subscribe, follow, award us 5 stars, write a review, tell all your friends and enemies. We're at Hellish Pod on social media, apart from Instagram, where we are Hellish_pod. The more visible the podcast is, the more episodes we'll be able to make. The second is if you want to tip us, you can go to coffee.com/hellishpod to throw us a few coins, either just because you're nice or because you want to try bribing your way out of hell. That's coffee.com/hellishpod, ko-fi.com/hellishpod. We workshopped that name ourselves in hell just to make it very awkward for all podcasters who are asking for tips. The last one is to subscribe to our Patreon. You'll get longer, ad-free episodes. You'll get access to our 2 pilots. Plus, there's a bunch of other bonus stuff for higher tiers, including the chance to make a cameo appearance on a future episode. That's at patreon.com/hellishpod. Now, back to Hellish. Welcome back to Hellish. Before we put the dust covers over our most devious instruments of musical torture, we are using them one more time on Andrea Parker and Paul Adams of Melys. One of the most hellish parts of an Infernal playlist is always the track that reminds you of a hard time in your life. And so that is what we are now asking Melys for. So what is this, guys?
This is my track, I think. This is Atmosphere by Joy Division.
Okay, Alex, what can you tell us about Atmosphere?
Well, this song was originally released on the 18th of March 1980 by the label Sordide Sentimental as a France-only 7-inch single under the title Licht und Blindheit, which is German for light and blindness. The record was limited to 1,578 copies. Joy Division nuts may know the significance of 1,578. All I could find out was that 1578 is the year Sir Francis Drake completed his passage through the Straits of Magellan, and the year that Sweden defeated Russia at the Battle of Wenden in present-day Latvia. Could there be a link? Who knows? John Peel played the track on his radio show the week after its release, and following the death of Joy Division singer Ian Curtis in May 1980, it was re-released as a 12-inch single by Factory Records. This song was played at the funeral of Factory Records founder Tony Wilson, and it's considered by Peter Hook of the band to be one of Joy Division's greatest songs.
Okay, so Paul, let's hear about this hard time in your life that Atmosphere recalls.
Do you know, I don't want to put a real down in it. It was just, it was a time where I was going through a lot of shit with my parents were getting divorced. I was moving house from Shropshire to North Wales, and I just remember I bought this 12-inch single, the one on Factory that you've just been talking about, and I literally played it to death. But I just remember the house. There was a lot of arguing. There was a lot of things, myself included in that. And this is where I really kind of discovered. I mean, I say it's a bad time in my life, and it's probably the time where I had the most release, because it's where I really delved into music as my friend, if you like, and it's probably where I kind of got into indie music and it was you say a bad time, but it was also a time that probably defined my musical preferences going forward as well.
It certainly is a very kind of moody track, isn't it? It does feel like funereal. Yeah. It's interesting that it gets used at Tony Wilson's funeral.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But yeah, I mean, I still listen to it today, and it's still, I mean,
oh, that's Cerberus, everybody. Someone forgot to...
I'm so sorry.
Put that song on, Dan.
Yeah. There we go. See that
just put your
dog agrees.
See if all dogs hate then Jericho. We'll find out.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. But no.
But Paul, am I right in thinking you moved from the borderlands of Wales, Shropshire, you moved pretty deep into Wales. Like,
I moved
sort of
into
North Wales is, the further west you go, the harder it is to get to. Like, I grew up in northeast Wales, and I could probably count on the fingers of, like, maybe both hands the amount of times I went further west than Conwy, you know?
Yeah.
So it must have felt like you were moving into the middle of nowhere.
Well, it did, because at the time I was in a community. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was still a very rural farming community I was involved in where I was brought up in Oswestry, but we had access to gigs in Birmingham and Manchester. There was a good network. So as a 16-year-old, that was amazing for me to do that. And then to be moved into Snowdonia, into a village, was quite interesting. And then your parents split up, and then there's all this stuff going on with changes that's going on. And so I just kind of fell back into music, and Atmosphere was one of the tracks that really resonated with me, and that now when I hear it, I don't get sad or miserable about it, but it does remind me of that time. It's very evocative of that time.
Well, thank you for that. So we'll move now on to track 4, which is a track you hate by an artist you love. So who's picked this one?
That'll be mine.
Oh, okay. So what is it then, Andrea?
This is a track by The Prodigy. Huge fan of the early 1990s version of The Prodigy. It was like my era.
Yeah.
But I hated Firestarter.
Oh, that's a big one to pick.
Oh.
Right.
Awful.
Let's hear a little bit of it, and then we'll get Alex to tell us about it.
I'm the fear addicted, danger illustrated. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter. You're the fire starter, twisted fire starter. I'm a fire starter, twisted fire starter.
Okay, Alex, what can you tell us about The Prodigy, please?
Well, The Firestarter by The Prodigy came out in the spring of 1996. It was the first single from the band's third album, The Fat of the Land. It was written by Liam Howlett, and it features the vocals of Keith Flint, and it was the band's first UK #1 single, a position it maintained for 3 whole weeks. And the samples used on the song means that in addition to Howlett and Flint, Kim Deal of the Pixies also receives a writing credit, along with journalist and cultural critic Paul Morley.
No way.
Oh, wow.
Really?
From his band Art of Noise
Oh, yeah.
are responsible for the hey, hey, hey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Apparently.
Wow, that is interesting. Okay, well done. Top song facts. Thank you, Alex.
Can you write your own fucking song?
Yeah. That's true. So Andrea, what is your beef with this one? Because
It was the whole. I mean, obviously, Keith Flint's passed away. Bless him. I don't want to speak ill of someone who's obviously passed on, but it's the whole shouty lyric of it all. It was just no, absolutely no. I didn't enjoy it. I've never been
girl, aren't you?
I am a Jilted Generation girl, absolutely. So yeah, this marked a huge departure from the stuff I loved from Prodigy at the time, and from this point onward, I think this is what dimmed my view, if that makes sense.
So it's this whole album, but this song sort of represents the pinnacle of it.
Yeah, totally. It was a huge change in direction. It wasn't one that, as a fan, I wanted to go on, and that was it for me. I was off. So yeah, I literally can't bear the whole shoutiness, the lyrics, and it just felt, as much as I think, that's kind of cool, they've used some really cool samples in it, but it just, no.
Weirdly, it was quite a good choice for the band, though, wasn't it? Probably, in terms of their success. Is that something that puts you off as well?
Perhaps the fact that, maybe my indie principles at that time and the way that they elevated themselves up from being this, indie dance band to becoming this massive band. They were everywhere. They were headlining every festival.
Did you have indie principles at the time?
I think, looking back, I think I did, Paul, more than I realised. Do you know what I mean? Definitely, And I think, when bands, especially things like people like Oasis, I loved the earlier stuff that they did rather than the whole, Wonderwall kind of stuff. It's the cigarettes and alcohol era of Oasis was really good. And then they did Wonderwall and then no. Absolutely no. So perhaps that's what drives my decisions here. Can you tell I was an indie kid?
No, I think I think you're right with that. I think that do they know that do you know that this is how we set Melys up, was on the strength of a Prodigy track?
Oh no,
really?
We didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Do tell.
We were sat in a car. I don't even remember. We were actually sat in a car and we listened to Jilted Generation cassette. Yeah.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, for God's sake, this is so shit, Andrea." She's like, "God, it's not. It's brilliant." I said, "Oh my God, it's crap." I said, "I can do this. I can write electronic music." Because at the time I was singer in a indie guitar band, and she goes, "I bet you can." And so I went home and recorded Cassir on a little Casio keyboard. And I got Andrea to sing it. So there we are. I've recorded it. You can sing it, and that's how we started. And then we went to a mate's flat and recorded it in his squat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And it was
what-
all because of Prodigy.
Oh, look at
We
that.
didn't sound much like Prodigy, though. That's the thing, what
No.
turned out,
Sorry.
actually.
Yeah,
There's no resemblance.
I
No,
don't think I would have
no.
made the jump if you hadn't told me.
Yeah.
But it could have been an interesting look if you'd have gone down that way.
Yes, they shaved the middle and
When you were talking about your indie principles, Andrea, I found myself wondering if when you are creating new work, when you're coming up with new songs, are you ever kind of consciously thinking like, oh, I think this might be too commercial, like what we've written is too, like, this isn't any good, or like, I don't want to put this out because I think it's too mainstream or commercial? Is that ever a consideration, or does it just
It's a
come out
really
the way
funny
it comes
thing.
out?
No, do you know what? That never, ever crosses my mind.
Okay.
It's
I've
never...
usually binned it by then, though. haven't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this is it. Do you know what I mean? We've never set out to kind of create music that is commercial. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's always an element of a little bit different anyway, and we kind of stand by those principles. But yeah, we've never really... I'm not aware of the fact that we've kind of binned things because we feel it is too commercial, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
And we just like songs that have got good hooks. If it's got a good hook, then it's great. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Child of the 80s, aren't we? So
absolutely.
we all have these big hooks on them,
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That is true. So maybe then Jericho have influenced you more than you realise.
No, I think I said they got to have hooks on them.
Yeah, they're one hook that they have that they do on every song that they have. Okay, so funnily enough, because we're talking about hooks, for the last time this season of Hellish, we are now going to put each of your heads into buckets full of earworms. The only way for you to avoid their infectious bites is to offer up a track which, once stuck in your head, you can never get out. So what are you going to be using to repel the earworms?
My earworm repellent will be Steve Lacy's Bad Habit.
It's okay, things happen for reasons that I think are sure. Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I knew you wanted me. I wish I knew. I wish I knew you wanted me. I wish I knew. Yeah, I wish I knew you wanted me. I wish I knew you wanted.
Okay, Alex, tell us about Bad Habit, please.
Well, it was a single from Steve Lacy's second studio album, Gemini Rights. It was released in June 2022. Steve Lacy was previously a member of the LA band The Internet before finding solo success from 2017. This song's success was significantly helped by TikTok, with it featuring in over 700,000 videos and a speeded up version featuring in a further 500,000. In 2022, his record label released the sped-up version, which Lacy himself described as gross. And he was initially against the release, but was won over by the promise of knocking Harry Styles off the top of the US Billboard chart.
Or by the swimming pool full of money they offered him.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he did both. He got the swimming pool full of money and he knocked Harry Styles off the top of the charts.
So 50-50 then. Okay, so Andrea, how did you come across this song? I hadn't heard this one before you brought it to Hell. So how did you find it?
This is all my children's fault. You
Okay.
live in a household that we have 3 children, and this song is playing.
They're not children,
speakers.
Andrea.
I know they're not young, but they're still my children,
Yeah.
and they just play this song incessantly to the point where, where you just have to ask them, so who is this? Because actually by this point I've heard it so much that I actually really like it. That's how this happened.
It is it the sped up version that you like? The version the bit I just played, was that
That's the one.
That's the one you hear. Okay, that's the one you
Indeed.
know. Okay.
Yes. So they're all TikTokers. They're all on TikTok. They've obviously, my son isn't. He's obviously, he loves rap. So we do hear a lot of rap music in our house, whether we want to or not. So we are fans of people like Kendrick Lamar, and we know about people, other like Danny Brown and some of the big rappers. But this one was something that even the girls enjoyed because they're all on TikTok, and it just got played over and over. And it's one of those earworms that literally developed, whether I liked it or not.
It does the golden earworm rule of repetition.
Indeed.
It really hammers it into you, doesn't it?
Yes.
It is.
The thing is with this question, though, it's like there's so many earworms
Yeah.
over the time
Yes.
period, isn't it? It's like it could be anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I was going to bring up an earworm that you are now singing on, Andrea, aren't you?
Yes.
So Ears by Cinerama, I heard you talking about that on Hugh Stevens as well, and I heard the version. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, because I know it's not that they can't hear your version just yet. So tell us what it is and when we might be able to hear it.
I don't know when it's coming out actually, but
Okay.
it's December, I think, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, December. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this is David Gedge. Obviously, we've become friends over the years because he's done so much touring with Wedding Present, and he's a fan of reissuing some of the albums that he's recorded. So essentially, with the Cinerama stuff, I think he has re-recorded most of the tracks from that album. And originally, the vocal from on Ears was done from by Emma Pollock from the Delgados. So when I got asked, I was a bit like, oh, crikey, following the footsteps of someone that I, honestly, it's quite an honour. But what he wanted was not just me to sing as she sang, but to also, if possible, translate one of the bits that I sing into Welsh as well. Because he really loves the Welsh language, and I think he's tried to learn it over time, and I think he's actually done a Welsh album at some point as well. So he's a real supporter of the Welsh language. So that's what I did. I re-recorded the first part in English, and the second refrain that I did it in Welsh. So yeah.
How easy was it to translate?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you just do a straight translation, or did you have to work in rhyme and stuff like that?
Well, to be fair, I had to mix two of the lines up, if that makes sense. So I didn't follow exactly the English version because the last line fitted better as the third line, if that makes sense.
Right.
So the third and fourth line had to switch to make sure that I could fit it. But yeah, pretty much it wasn't too difficult to translate in the end.
Okay, and when you are, because you're a bilingual band. In fact, sometimes your songs are bilingual. That you have both languages in your songs.
Yeah.
How do you decide which language you're going to work in? Is it as planned out as that, or does it just happen? Like, how do you make those decisions?
How do we make the decision, Paul? How do we decide? I think it is a feeling for a track.
It's a feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether we think it will work,
Yeah, absolutely. It's I don't think it's not like a half rule or a 60-40 or any of that. It's just when a track's kind of written.
Yeah. We don't set out to write a Welsh track or an English track. We just write a track and see which you feel would be would suit it.
That noise is often mistaken for the mating call of the lesser spotted hellhound, but it is in fact the call of the HR department. While I pop over to their devilish cubicles, Alex, can you confirm Melys's infernal playlist, please?
I can indeed. Well, it starts with a track that Melys are embarrassed they used to like. In this instance, it's Paul, and it is The Motive by then Jericho. Number 2, a track universally adored that they cannot stand, Radio Gaga by Queen. Track number 3, a track that brings back bad memories, is Atmosphere by Joy Division. Track number 4, a track that Andrea hates by an artist she loves, is Firestarter by The Prodigy. And track number 5, a track once stuck in Melys's heads that can never get out, is Bad Habit by Steve Lacy. So which of these 5 songs would you least like to hear on repeat? Which is the most hellish of your hellish songs, Melys?
Radio Gaga for me, definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with that, even though it's not my choice. I kind of agree with you on that one.
Okay, all right, well, we'll play you out with a bit of Radio Gaga then. So, Tracy, that's fine, no problem at all. Anything to make your stay uncomfortable. So, Tracy tells me you are going to be working in a petrol station together. The interesting thing about this petrol station is that it sells 5 things. It sells petrol, obviously. It sells tobacco. It sells Rizla, it sells alcohol, And it also sells moss. So not only are you going to be spending your nights working in this hellish petrol station, you're going to be spending your days gathering the moss to make sure that you've got something to sell in the evening. So I hope...
I'll be drunk.
There you go. Well, if that's going to make it easier for you, we're going to take that away from you too.
Oh, no.
Sorry. So while you are working there, you will be forced to wear ridiculous hats that contain tiny transistor radios that will constantly play your infernal playlist. But before you go, is there anything you want to tell the listeners about? Maybe remind us about the new single?
Yeah, that was out yesterday. That's called Santa Cruz. Buy it.
Okay. I'm assuming that's wherever people get their downloads, they can get that.
Yeah.
And then when can we expect the album? Do you know about that yet?
Yeah, we're looking at spring.
Lovely.
It looks like it's a spring release, so that's cool. And there'll be a full UK tour to go with that.
Nice.
Very cool.
And have you got a name for the album?
Not as yet.
Okay.
No, we're going under a working title at the moment, so we haven't really got a name for it yet. So
Okay.
We'll see how it all pans out.
All right, we'll look forward. And then one last thing I have to ask you is that there are some gigs. I think you've got a gig tonight, haven't you?
Yeah, we're in Swansea tonight Aberystwyth tonight and Swansea tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, well there you go, listeners. Go and see Melys. You've got today and tomorrow, and then hopefully we'll see you on tour next year. So, Andrea and Paul from Melys, thank you so much for coming on Hellish. But now I have to tell you to go to hell. Hellish was written and presented by me, Daniel Whelan, and Satan's favourite script monkey, Alex Gale. You can support the show on patreon.com/hellishpod. Find us on social media at hellishpod, apart from Instagram where it's hellish_pod. You can listen to all of Melys's choices and our ongoing Ultimate Infernal playlist, bringing everyone's choices together at hellishpod on Spotify. That's it from Hellish for Season 1. We'll be back with a new Damned Soul in February 2025. However, we aren't leaving you completely. Don't forget to check back tomorrow for a surprise bonus pod. Until next time,